Welcome to UnCommie Goods. The pandemic of 2020 exposed America's reliance on Chinese-made goods. Not only were we short on critical life-saving equipment, much of it from China ended up being defective. We were caught with our face masks down. They played us. Why is America handing off production of critical goods to China, and what can we do about it? Here on UnCommie Goods, we expose the nefarious misdeeds of the Chinese government: prison labor, suppression of human rights, theft of intellectual property, imperialist actions towards other nations. The list goes on. Let's hit them where it hurts. Stop buying goods made in China. And it's not all doom and gloom over here. This show celebrates the makers of UnCommie Goods, the stuff made right here in America, maybe even in your own backyard. Meet the people behind small American businesses, learn the secrets of their success, and how buying American goods supports innovation, local communities, jobs, and economic opportunity. And I'll even crack a few jokes while we're at it. Let's make it in America. I'm your host, Lars. This is UnCommie Goods. Welcome to the inaugural podcast of UnCommie Goods. My name's Lars. I'm based in San Francisco, and I happen to be an immigrant from Sweden. What is an uncommie good? It's anything not made in communist China or any communist country, any nation that is hostile to the U.S. So you could add North Korea to the list, but other than counterfeit money, I'm not really sure what else they're manufacturing and exporting to the U.S. Actually, that piqued my curiosity, so I ended up doing a little research. So the top exports of North Korea, probably not to the U.S., but to the rest of the world. Number one, cold briquettes, 367 million. Non-knit men's coats, 139 million. Mollusks, 137 million. Non-knit women's coats, 128 million. And non-knit men's suits, 105 million. And that's all according to the Office of Economic Complexity. I'm sure those North Korean fashions are really exciting, but we're not going to buy any. It's also want to point out that this episode is not sponsored by any of the products I mentioned later on. So, not only do I want to focus on shifting consumer habits to not buying Chinese-made goods, this podcast hopefully will also celebrate, small American businesses that produce and sell their goods here in the U.S. So, speaking of China, the sentiment towards buying non-Chinese made goods is getting very strong in the U.S. I'm seeing a lot of articles about it, and it's just, based on what's happened here with the COVID epidemic, we're finding out that China is not really a reliable source of anything. So here's an article I came across. Americans are giving Made in China the cold shoulder. It's from May 17th, Bloomberg article, and here's some of the things it said. Some 40% of Americans said they won't buy products from China, according to a survey of 1,012 adults conducted May 12th to the 14th by Washington-based FTI Consulting, a business advisory firm. Also, 55% don't think China can be trusted to follow through on its trade deal commitments signed in January to buy more U.S. products. Jay, you think? 78% said they'd be willing to pay more for products if the company that made them moved manufacturing to China. So that's where I hopefully can help out. We can find and discover and discuss more of those products. Another statistic, 66% said they favor raising import restrictions over the pursuit of free trade deals as a better way to boost the U.S. economy. So, as you may be aware, the number one headline maker in the United States right now, President Trump, has made strong comments about bringing more manufacturing back from China to the USA. And I'd like to see this occur as well. The U.S. can't be a service industry only. We have to make things too. China, I have a lot of misgivings about their government. Not necessarily the Chinese people, but the government and what they do as a nation. Think about things like Tibet, how they treat religious minorities in their country, the awful labor conditions, pollution, human rights violations, etc. And also, their products that have been exported to the U.S. have been contaminated with toxins, such as in 2007, pet foods and treats killed thousands of pets in the U.S., and it happened again in 2014. The problem is even worse in China. It kills their pets in a much greater number. In fact, we should be exporting pet food to them. Also, a few years ago, the Chinese made infant formula that was contaminated and led to the deaths of babies in China. I don't think it happened in the U.S. I've linked an article in the show notes here. So there's so many issues with China, political, manufacturing, human rights. It could take a series of long podcasts to cover them all. So, but what can we do now? Well, individually, we can decide what we buy based on where and how it was made. Simply, let's start with buying everyday goods that are not made in China. Let's try to find their equivalent made in the U.S. I know for certain my next iPhone and laptop will not be made in China, so it's going to, adios MacBook and iPhone. In fact, I'm using those right now to make this podcast. So everything that's making this podcast right now is made in China, except for probably the software. Though I did read an article recently that Apple is shifting some AirPods production to Vietnam, which is another communist country. So with any luck, they'll move to Cuba next, and then maybe some other country, and then maybe someday they'll do it in Venezuela, and then maybe somewhere else. So not only is the goal of buying non-Chinese made goods to move out of China, but it's also to bring our supply chains home to the U.S. If you recall, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, there was a lot of issues and delays getting the necessary personal protective equipment, or PPE, as China was the only source for a lot of those goods. And it was hard to get those. Who knows if they're being trustworthy with transporting and selling them here. So let's bring it back. So one company already in the U.S. is moving forward to getting out of China, Ballad Health. They're an integrated healthcare system that serves 29 counties of Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, Northwest North Carolina, and Southeast Kentucky. And they're formed something called Ballad and Premier, which is going to be one of the world's largest group purchasing organizations for hospitals. And they're going to be seeking out partnerships with manufacturers to establish a domestic supply chain of PPE. I've linked the article in the show notes. So they know that you can't rely on China, and they're actually doing something about it. And they're not the only one. Japan just invested $2 billion towards moving out of China. Usually they're going into China, but that's all history. In terms of like buying goods and stuff, we're psychologically wired to, look at the lowest price, right? The smallest sacrifice to get something that meets our need at the time. But as I mentioned earlier, according to that Bloomberg article, 78% of Americans are, they say they're willing to pay more. I don't know how much more. Are you going to pay $300 for a toothbrush? Probably not. So let's not make the cost a primary focus. And let's look at where something is made, who benefits, who profits from it, and how we can play a part in not supporting the Chinese government or funding their economy with our dollars. Let's keep it in the U.S., and if not the U.S., friendlier nations. So I'm sure you're aware that a lot of advanced products, computers, high-tech equipment, it's really hard, even cars, it's really hard to get 100% made in the U.S. Cars, computers, they're going to have components that are made in China or somewhere else we don't like. So obviously this is going to require careful vetting, and hopefully over time the demand that we as consumers will put forth the effort to make processes and products more transparent. It's really up to us. I got this idea because I recently came across a Twitter post that linked to a Reddit post that was in the Hong Kong subreddit. You can imagine Hong Kong, they're not living in China. And the Hong Kong situation right now is yet another reason to get out of China and not support them based on those actions. So the post was called Everyday Items Not Made in China by a Reddit user named, get this, Moisturize Me. It's a moisturize_me. So I thought this list was a great place to look at to start buying UnCommie goods. So these are everyday items. So thankfully, Moisturize Me put this together for us, and I'm happy to share it. So oral health, that's an everyday item. You're supposed to brush your teeth at least twice a day. So toothbrush, the Oral-B brand, the majority is made in the USA according to the website, with the exception of their Sesame Street manual toothbrush. This guy actually called their customer service rep. He has the numbers here and everything. Floss, Oral-B, yet again, Oral-B Glide, made by W.L. Gore and Associates, headquartered in Newark, Delaware. That's according to Wikipedia. Wikipedia, not necessarily an objective source, so maybe research there. Toothpaste, again, Oral-B for the Triple Crown. Oral-B toothpaste made in the USA, he called them. In fact, call them at 1-800-492-7378. Mouthwash, Crest 3D White, made in the U.S. The same phone number, so I guess you could call them. The next everyday good, deodorant, Secret, made in the USA and Mexico. So Mexico, friendly nation, sure, according to Wikipedia. I didn't see a men's deodorant listed here, but I know there's plenty. I did some Google searching and I'd seen some. I'm going straight off this article or this post. Laundry detergent, Tide, Downy, Gain, Bounce, and Tide Pods. Don't eat them. Made in the USA, according to a website about Lima, Ohio. So Lima, Ohio must be the laundry detergent capital of the United States. Skincare. So not my strong suit. I've heard of maybe one of these. So there's one called Deciem, Deciem, made in Canada. So I would say that's a friendly nation, no matter what you think about Justin Trudeau. SkinCeuticals, made in the USA. Maybe I'll look into that. BFF Effect, BFF ECT, made in Taiwan. They're probably not loving China themselves right now. Avene, Avene, made in France. The source, this guy checked all the back of the bottles he owns from each of them, or she. Essential oils for diffusers and personal use. Essential oils, they'll cure everything, cancer, etc. I'm kidding, of course, but essential oils are definitely a flashpoint topic. I guess it's a lot of people make strong claims about it, but me, I use them. They smell nice. So there's a brand called Sage, S-A-G-E, S-A-J-E, made in Canada. So take a look there. So clothing, we wear clothes every day, so it's definitely an everyday item. Here's one called the Girlfriend Collective. It's made in Vietnam from recycled bottles sourced from Taiwan. So I have no idea if you can get it here, but it's a women's athletic gear. I'm not familiar with them. Good Human. This one's spelled interesting. Good, as spelled good. And then human is spelled H-Y-O-U-M-A-N. So it's like good, H-U, as in like you're a good person, men. Men, women, and kids sweats, made in the USA. Canada Goose. You're not going to believe where it's made, but yes, it's made in Canada, according to their website. So these are like the premier winter jackets, men's and women's, available. Quartz Company, men and women's winter jackets. Yet again, made in Canada. I'm thinking Canada's got this monopoly on making clothes, at least winter jackets. Canuck, another Canadian company. It's spelled K-A-N-U-K. So a little variation of Canuck. Canuck's a slang for Canadian. I don't know if it's good or bad, friendly or not, but so there's some Canadian winter jackets. So Canada's 3 for 3 in the winter jackets category. We got you here. American Giant. It's a full clothing line for men and women, made in the USA. Goodwear. Full line of clothing for men and women, made in the USA, according to their website. Footwear, these are ones I've never heard of before, but I checked and you can buy them in the U.S. Vessi Footwear, V-E-S-S-I Footwear. Men and women's waterproof sneakers, made in Taiwan. And SOM, spelled S-O-M. Men and women's footwear made in the USA, according to their website. Socks. We wear socks every day. There's a company called Darn Tough. Men, women, and kids, made in the USA. Another one called Duray, spelled D-U-R-A-Y. Wool socks. Canada, back again. So, and this is obviously Hong Kong specific. The post says, lastly, if you're looking for a nice tennis racket to return any tear gas or rubber bullets, go for the Yonex brand. They have some nice ones that are made in Japan. Look at that, huh? Someone of Chinese descent wanting to get something from Japan. Yonex is spelled Y-O-N-E-X. So that will give you a starting point of what you can buy that supports friendly to the U.S., yes, even Canada, considered friendly to the U.S., goods. And I think that over time, as you make the shift, manufacturers and producers, they analyze consumer spending habits, and they will make the change. So spend an extra 38 cents on a toothbrush or mouthwash, toothpaste. Maybe get some high-end socks. Don't go for the cheapest ones that you can buy. If you have the means, of course. No one's going to judge you if you can't afford something. So do that. Let me know what you think and just get started. And let's see what we can do to build a better source of goods for things we use every day. Thanks for listening.